All right, so we are live, I think. I'll double check in just a second here. Yes, Facebook just sort of went live on its own, actually. Usually I have to push the button, but this time it's just like, hey, you're going.
Oh,
Yeah, right. So I'm here today with Kate Hall, who helps authors do better on TikTok, basically, leverage TikTok more efficiently to drive sales. And then also, you've taken what you've been teaching for some time and been using at TikTok shops, as have a lot of your people that you've taken your course. And so, of course, we're going to talk about that as well, because I feel like TikTok shops are definitely one of the new or the new-ish hotness things. I mean, they've been around now
right.
for about 9 months, I think, right? Something like that.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
about
about,
right.
yeah. So why don't I, before I'm always do like this, I'll just dive into a random topic before I let you introduce yourself. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell folks a little bit about what you do?
I am Kate Hall, and I like to introduce myself by saying I don't love TikTok. I hate TikTok, and I cannot let it win, which is why I have to know everything there is to know about it and keep up to date about it. I got started with TikTok on accident. Actually, I was making no money from my book sales and I was really struggling. And one of my friends was like, "Hey, would you run my account for like a month and I will pay you some money?" And I was like, "Cool," because I need a computer and I got like a refurbished one. And then she
Okay.
was like, "Oh, well, I also have a friend who wants it done." And I was like, "Well, if I'm going to be doing this for multiple people, then I need to be the best that has ever been about this topic because I can't just like have clients and have this risk of not knowing what I'm talking about." So I was like, I'm going to learn all of it.
So you're a bit
And
of
it,
a
it
perfectionist, is what
exploded from
you're saying.
there. Yes.
So you're
A
okay.
hundred percent.
I know how that
Yeah.
is actually. So I'm just rearranging windows on my computer here. So that's cool though. So you got into it because it sort of fell in your lap, and you wanted to like actually figure out how the heck it works. So you just sort of like sunk your teeth in the way you went, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty much exactly what happened. I was like, I could use some money and I will do a lot of things to get some money. And she was like, well, how about this one thing that's a little less embarrassing than other things?
So so how hard was it for you to sort of like get to the point where you could actually make TikTok really work for you?
So I started posting her TikToks on December 4th, and I started posting my own TikToks. I started getting the confidence of just like, okay, I'll just post my stuff about my books.
Mhm.
Um, and I'll just do that. And, you know, basically fuck it. And I'll start posting them. Sorry if language isn't allowed. I like to
No, that's
cuss though.
fine. I'm pretty sure
Um,
as well.
Perfect. So about 10 days after I started posting for her, I started posting my own, and I went from making $300 a month to making that first month out the gate was $3,500.
Nice.
Um,
That's a tenfold increase just for making some videos.
yes, yeah, and that's just from my book royalties. That doesn't include what I was getting paid to help other people with their TikToks at the time.
Awesome. And I'm assuming you've just continued to boost that and grow that now. Although if you're in a position where I'm in, you might be like working on some of the other people's accounts that you are. It's like to the detriment of your own to some extent.
Sort of. So I actually, I definitely don't post as often as I used to. I don't post as often as I should. Um, So my income on my books has definitely taken very much like a side
Hmm.
to everything else because I've been so busy with like TikTok for authors. I don't run accounts for people anymore because that was so exhausting and so stressful for me. But
Yeah.
yeah, my own books have definitely kind of been pushed off to the side.
Yeah. I
But I do find that it gives me a lot more freedom in like I'm not super stressed about having to have the next book out and stuff like that.
yeah, that's really I get that for sure. That's really nice. And I also really get how it can be really stressful to run other people's accounts for them, because you become invested in their success, in a way that can keep you up at night
Yes.
sometimes. So it's
Yes,
like,
absolutely. And whenever, especially when, my income depends on other people's success, that gets really, really stressful as well. And
yeah,
when my reputation is dependent on other people's success, then that gets really stressful. So,
Yeah, I definitely understand that. It's not for the faint of heart to take on that kind of responsibility. And I think one of the things too that is, it's actually there's a mindset thing I've been talking with a lot of people lately in the industry is that like all advertising avenues eventually fail. Like every single thing that you do now to advertise a book in 5 years won't work at the very, probably a lot sooner than that, you know. And like you're running Facebook
Right.
ads or you're doing any sort of like particular type style of video on TikTok or whatnot, eventually it'll stop working. So in a way, if you sort of like in your mind, if you're like, I'm looking for this nirvana where I can create this type one piece of content or this one ad that's going to just like magically make money forever. I don't have to do anything. And we sort of set that as this goal. You're never going to reach that, and you're always going to feel like a failure. So I have to sort of remind people that it's an ongoing effort where you have to do upkeep, you have to be
Right.
learning new things, and figuring out how to reach people in whatever way is currently working. So
Yes,
I
for sure. And I do find, because I do have a marketing background,
Mhm.
aside from my books and everything, I actually started out my not working for the man or for corporate things. I started that out by doing marketing and social media marketing. And
Mhm.
like I said about TikTok, I have to learn every single thing about every single thing, um, if I feel like somebody's paying me to do it. So
Yeah.
I think that the important thing that I always tell people is if you have a really heavy focus on the marketing, if you have really strong hooks, then you're not just taking these on TikTok or whatever. You can take these anywhere because that's always my goal for people is to have a really solid foundation
Mhm.
at the end of the day.
Did you see, you cut out for just a second? Did you say hooks or books?
Hooks,
Okay.
HOOKS, also known as
Okay.
scripts. It's difficult because there's like hooks as like the long script and stuff, and then there's hooks like that first 3 seconds thing that people see or hear, like that first sentence.
Right.
And it's so confusing because it's like there's no good terminology for like all of it. So I'll generally alternate between saying hooks and scripts and stuff
Okay.
for that.
And
Um,
I'm guessing you mentioned the first 3 seconds. Obviously, that's the most important part of any TikTok video because if they don't, if that doesn't grab them, obviously they're not going to keep going. Do you find is it the text or the video or the music is the most important thing in that first 3 seconds?
the text every single time. The text is the most important thing. If you're not, or if you're speaking to the camera, it's that first sentence and the text on screen that goes with it is going to be the most important thing every single time. And that doesn't matter if it's TikTok. It can be TikTok, it can be Instagram Reels, it can be Facebook, it can be YouTube, it can be, a Google ad or whatever. That first sentence is going to be the most important thing because we want to set up a reader expectation on what they're going to see if they keep going with that, whatever that piece of marketing is.
Yeah, that aligns really well with my experience. I make a lot of reels for authors and help authors learn to make a lot of reels, and that's been what I found too. And even with static image ads on Facebook, we were talking with a woman recently who runs a service called whalereader.com, where she's a whale reader, and she'll sort of like look at your ads and say,
Mhm.
would this grab me or would this not grab me, and all sorts of things. And she said even for still ads, she looks at the picture and then she looks at the headline. She didn't even know what it was called. She's like the bold text under the picture, because that's sort of how we go.
Yeah,
We go down to the next piece of bold text, and she's like, if those like 7 or 8 words don't grab me, then I'm moving on. So
exactly.
it's the same thing. Yeah. So
Yes.
that's
And
cool though.
also, I noticed we're
Yeah,
both like, every time
I
I notice
know.
you messing with your hair, I mess with mine. And then you're like, I gotta mess with mine. I'm like, I just, sorry. I thought that was funny.
I'll
Um,
just keep my hands firmly clasped.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna mess with my hair and then, you know,
Okay.
but yeah, so, um, what I see a lot of people doing with that first sentence. Yeah, my toddler's here because our
Oh,
well guy is here. My husband's dealing with him. Yes, that's Mama. Go watch your show. Of course. What I find a lot of people tend to do with that is they're like, okay, so what's going to hook people is going to be the plot, or it's going to be this dope title that I have, or it's going to be the cover. And what happens is trying to sell to people rather than appeal to an emotional response first. And I think that's the biggest issue that a lot of people are not quite able to grasp on their own without a lot more education on the matter. And that's like I've had to learn so much over so many years. Rowan, you can't be
Oh,
on my video.
oh, sounds sweet though. I love that you're saying that, because that's something I tell authors all the time. It's the emotional hook. I say, like, we are really what we are is we're dopamine pushers. We're selling people that emotional response, and if people, and that's why people read books. Like a lot of the books that we write, there's going to be a happy ending. The good guys are going to win. If it's a romance, the couple's going to get together and they're going to have an HEA. Like, the reader kind of knows how it's going to end, but they care about, are you going to give them the feels on the way? And if they can't be confident they're going to get the feels, then they're not going to read. You look
Yeah,
like you're
exactly.
really working
Yeah,
hard there.
he's headbutting me. It's fine. But yeah, so it's very much yeah, that dopamine chasing, and also just like giving them something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Hi. I'm a big proponent of Theodora Taylor's
Mhm.
concept of universal fantasy. I talk about it constantly. And so I'm
Yep.
always like, on that first sentence, you've got to appeal to that universal fantasy, and you've got to have some form of conflict.
Yeah, that
Mama's
makes a ton
on
of sense.
a meeting.
I'm totally with you on that. Theodore Taylor, like, really wonderfully encapsulated that really core thing about how people interact with any sort of entertainment media that they want. I think it was brilliant how she pulled that together. I realized I hadn't said hi to folks. A few folks we're spread across a bunch of different platforms, so I think we've probably got about 20 or 30 people watching right now. But hi, Danica and Pippa and William. And Emma Luna says she's taking your course right now, and it's really good.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm
So
really glad that she's enjoying it.
to get some live kudos. William Stacy, by the way, asked what type of what genre do you write for yourself?
I write paranormal romance. I got my start in Tiny Monsters, let me tell you. I write paranormal romance, and I got my start with paranormal reverse harem romance, but I've shifted over to paranormal MF romance because I have
Okay.
16, 17-ish RH books out. And so I've got a huge backlist for that. But I enjoy writing the MF paranormal romance a lot more personally.
Okay, that makes sense. It's probably, I don't know about TikTok for sure, but I know with other avenues it's easier to market MF just from like the advertising platforms, rules and standards, than it is to do a reverse harem.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. You can't really use the why choose or reverse harem hashtags on TikTok because they're like, "Oh, you're a porn vendor is what you are." And I'm like, "Listen, that's only like 15% of the book though." So, um
It's so funny though, because it's like TikTok, you literally make like a solid quarter of your money off of that kind of content. Like, let's stop virtue signaling here, TikTok.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say back in I want to say February of 2023, I noticed I was paying attention to the original Congress hearings about the potential ban, and they were like, what about the children? You were pushing inappropriate things to the children. We know it was really because they were getting paid off, but TikTok was like, we're going to pretend that's the reason, and we're going to make sure there's no inappropriate content. So I was telling people back then, I was like, don't post smutty scenes. Stop posting smutty scenes because everybody's like, oh, I just need to post the smuttiest thing I have. But that hasn't been working for a long time, and it gets a lot of people frustrated because they're trying so hard, and then they're either getting 0 views or their account is getting banned.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a fairly controversial TikTok account. I've been flat out banned 3 times and got my account back each time. And I'm forever shadow banned though at this point, pretty much. Like, I have 82,000 followers, and I'm lucky if 5,000 people see my videos and I put them up. So yeah, it totally makes sense. And it's interesting because that happens a lot with a lot of platforms where they'll get kind of lax, and a lot of racy content will start showing up, and then it gets in the news or gets in the public eye somehow that they're doing that, and then they bring down the hammer. Like right now, you can get away with anything on Facebook. It's like the Wild West right now. You can advertise THC products, you can advertise AI girlfriends. You can't advertise anything having to do with politics because we're in election year. But anything else I feel like is fair game. People are like, oh, we should do this and this. I'm like, they're going to bring down the hammer. Whenever this happens, that they go really wide and will do anything. Someone's going to bring it up in the news. It's going to end up on ABC or in front of Congress or something, and the hammer is going to come down. So don't play games with it, because you don't want to lose your account after you put a lot of work into it. So I totally understand how that works. Speaking of genres, by the way, I want to dovetail into this. Are there genres that work better on TikTok? Are there genres that don't work at all? Are there ways to make anything work on TikTok genre-wise?
So, what I've found in my experience is that world-driven and plot-driven content is not going to do as well as character-driven content in any setting. So we're obviously going to see bigger trends on romance, dark romance. Romantasy is having a moment right now. We're obviously going to see that working a lot better. Mm-hmm. But what I always tell people is, if you can find something that without it being resolved in the scene that you're sharing that will piss people off, then you can find your readers. And you want them pissed off on behalf of the character, not just like pissed off that you exist.
That's an important distinction.
But yes. So I find that anything character driven tends to work a lot better than something that's heavily plot driven or something that's heavily like world driven.
Okay.
So like, it's a lot harder whenever you're doing like a high fantasy that's a span of 10 years and mm-hmm. all of your characters have stuff going on, like, and it's all like political intrigue and it's all, the world conflicts and stuff like that. It's a lot harder to push that kind of stuff on TikTok than it is to push, oh my God, this guy dumped her on her birthday and her best friend's billionaire older brother saw it happen. Come on.
Right. Yeah.
Because we're gonna feel a lot more like personal anger about the latter.
Yeah. I think that's actually true everywhere. Like, there are a certain type of reader who really does like to read for plot. And a lot of times they're going to be like male, and they're probably going to be reading like a modern day political thriller, or they might be reading science fiction, or they might be reading certain brands of fantasy. So they can oftentimes be appealed to on plot, but generally speaking, even they will be more likely to buy a book if they become invested in the character and the character stakes. That's something that Jill and I talked about. We have a book called Help My Blurb Sucks, and one of the things in there is people one click based on the personal stakes for the character. So if you can't make them care about that character's situation, then they're not going to buy, unless you have like the most amazing world building ever and you've hit the audience that loves that exactly. But that's hard to do.
Yeah. And I find that whenever you're focusing on these things that are more personally relatable, you're also more likely to bring new people into a genre they hadn't considered before, because they're like, oh, I want to know what happens here. And then they might not originally be a fan of your genre, but if they're already invested in this situation and in these characters, then they're more likely to give it a chance.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. As always, I get off course. So I should get back to my list.
What's TikTok? I've never heard of it.
Hopefully everybody at this point knows what TikTok is. What tips do you have for authors who are intimidated by TikTok?
The biggest thing that I see, because I've been doing this whenever it's for one specific social media thing, it's eternity, because it's been over a year and a half that I've been doing mm-hmm. this. And the biggest thing I want to say is it doesn't have to be as difficult and as complex as you're expecting it to be. You don't have to make the perfect piece of content that you're going to post and it's going to make you millions of dollars, or it's going to ruin your career. The big thing that you just have to do is create a bunch of basic ass pieces of content that you don't spend all of your life and energy and like mental health working on, and just post them over and over again. I have 14 hooks or scripts or whatever you want to call them. That's all I have for all of my books. And I post those on TikTok across 4 accounts. I post those on repeat and I just change the background image with the text. So it doesn't have to be hard. It just has to be consistent.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
My son might have from his favorite toy to our dogs.
I like too how what was that? Oh, okay. I like also how you only have 14 scripts. Like you're not trying to come up with something brand new every time. I actually just gave that advice to an author the other day who was making Instagram reels for Facebook for ads, and he's like trying to always come up with new hooks. I'm like, you've got hooks that work. You don't need to make new ones all the time. You can just recycle some of the old ones. But it's fascinating you only have 14. I like that. That feels like a very achievable thing to write 14 of these. How long do you feel that the video should be that you create?
1 second. My toddler's having a meltdown. I will answer your question. I just need to
I can
chill him
spitball
out a tiny bit.
I will, by the way, Stacey, I will ask about women on TikTok. I know there's more women readers in general, and outside of things like hard science fiction, military science fiction, I think every genre has more women readers than male readers. And I feel like even hard sci-fi is basically 50-50. So I do wonder if there are more women who use TikTok. I don't actually know what the gender stats look like on TikTok. I know more women use Facebook by like about 5 to 10% in women's favor over men's on using Facebook. So that could totally be an interesting thing as well. Hopefully Kate's child survives whatever trauma is ongoing right now. I know how that can be on both ends. I don't actually remember being that young and having a
Sorry, still trying to fix it. I'm listening to your questions, I promise.
No worries. So yeah, I think I personally have wanted to get back into TikTok more for a while now. So when Jill mentioned that Kate would be coming on, I was actually kind of excited because I'm like, I'm going to lift as much as I can off of this, and I want to do TikTok Shop as well. It's something I want to get into. So we are going to talk with her about that as well. But if anyone has questions that they want to like stack up while we're waiting for Kate to return, you guys can do that. Things you're interested in knowing. I know I feel bad because he just wants Mama, right? But Mama's busy and can't give him what he needs. I do think that book talk is more female based, Emma, but that doesn't mean the guys aren't there and you can't reach them in other ways. And that's I don't know TikTok algorithms super well, so I don't know how easy that is to sort of like tap into a particular market that isn't sort of self-identifying like book talk is. The chicken chair is cute. I actually was looking at that too, thinking that was pretty cute, Danica. Yes, we will get to the course. I went backwards as I often do.
I have a very funny comment about the chicken chair. My mom got it, and her best friend came over the day after she got it, and she was like, "Oh, you like sitting on cocks?" So that's the chicken chair.
Okay. That took me a second. I'm like, wait, did she just say what I thought she just said? I like how Kate's appearing from either side as well. I think that's especially neat. So that you can say you sit on cocks too, Danica? Is that your plan? No, you're absolutely right, Shouty. It is a little bit difficult because I guess like the algorithm is one thing, but like when you're doing targeted ads like I do, they don't, Facebook doesn't recognize anything other than male and female, which is unfortunate. But yes, you're absolutely right. Sorry, what was that?
My husband is coming to the rescue.
Oh, that's good. Put him to work.
Well, he's trying to deal with He's the
Yeah,
full-time dad. He's the full-time parent of the household. So, um, yeah,
right.
fun stuff.
And
But yes,
working adult
I
movies.
heard a bunch of questions.
Yeah, let's start
Book
with the
talk
course.
is predominantly female.
Okay.
Um, sorry, what did you say about the course?
I was saying, yeah, why don't you tell us a bit about what's in the course that you have, and what you offer authors and that.
Yeah, so it's a big course. It's very chunky because I was like, I don't know what you don't know. I know so fucking much about TikTok that it's impossible for me to guess what people know and what they don't. So I was like, I'll just talk about everything. So like there's literally a section that's like, okay, so here's how you download TikTok. You go to the App Store. It's okay if you spell it wrong. Look what happens if you spell TikTok wrong. It still pops up. It's this one right here. This is what the logo looks like. And like how to post a video, how to go through and follow people. Like it's really comprehensive. But from there, it goes into here's how the algorithm functions. Like even at a base level, no matter the minute changes they annoyingly make every other week, there's always things that are consistent, like how, and this is a really basic way of putting it, TikTok bases their algorithm and like the videos you see based off of the number of seconds that you watch, not based off of the percentage of a video watched. So you were talking about the length of content, longer content is going to do better because if people watch half of a 60-second video, they're watching a lot more than they watch a 4-second video 4 times.
Okay.
So it goes into that, and it goes into 2 distinct areas. After you go over like all of the hook writing lessons and stuff, it goes more into detail on 2 distinct types of content, and they are faceless content and what I lovingly in a YouTube video I made yesterday called face-ish content, where you include your face.
Okay.
So, you know, so I like to tell people like, you can take the course if you want to learn how to talk and be excited and sell your stuff on TikTok using your face and your voice, but you don't have to sing and dance if you don't want to. You don't have to show your face. You don't have to show your hands or your house or paperbacks of your book or whatever. You don't have to do any of that because there's so many ways to do it. That means that there's a right way for everybody, because I know I don't have the spoons to go and post a video of my face every single day on TikTok.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of content because I wanted people to have options, and it's super, super comprehensive. And it explains, here's why this thing works, here's why this doesn't, here's TikTok's mindset on that, and here's this other stuff. And then it has a Discord group and a Facebook group, depending on which type of thing you prefer. Because obviously TikTok is changing every other day. And so if this week they're okay with the word tagging, I don't know, and then next week they're not, then people are going to be like, hey, this is a word that's banned now. Because it is overall, while I have a deep understanding of TikTok and the algorithm and the types of changes they're making over the long term and the patterns for those changes, it's impossible to keep up with those little minute changes without having that massive community that helps. It helps so many people. I've got a community of well over 500 people that are like, yeah, I'm going to help you. If you need help, then I'm going to help you.
That's really cool. That makes a lot. I like that a lot because yeah, it is hard to keep track of like what's the thing I'm seeing for some random reason and what's a trend that's happening across the board can be
exactly
very hard.
like
yeah, you can't tell them apart on your own.
Yeah, and like why are asterisks working for censoring certain words this week, but next week it's going to be the @ symbol for A's or something? Like it's going to change on just like a really silly level almost of like, why does this matter? And like, why can't I use the word hand without censoring it? That kind of stuff. And it's because obviously hands are for porn only. So
I see. Wow.
hands only do porn things.
And right now, unless you say senator or mayor, you can say anything in a Facebook ad. You can say fuck in a Facebook ad now. It's kind of wild how things like that change. Whereas Facebook used to be like you couldn't even say ass, you know. But
yeah, so I can say like the billionaire's ass, but I can't say the governor's ass.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's how it is on Facebook. Yeah. So you got to, yeah.
Yeah,
So
and the reason TikTok is so strict
Go ahead.
Yeah, and the reason TikTok is so strict is because the US is like, oh, well, these are the reasons we're banning it, and just ignore those tens of thousands of dollars of donations from Meta and Google. Ignore those. But
Yeah,
it's the words, it's the sexy words like
yeah.
hand and
Or the
hair.
fact that like
Um,
the majority of TikTok is actually owned by U.S. investors who are using this as a way to grab the rest of it. So there's
yeah,
also
and
that
then
angle
all
too.
US data is owned by a US company as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we should, yeah, and we should only be spied on by our own, by U.S. companies. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
but no, I
yeah.
totally get that. I do feel like I think that one thing that I would love to see, this is sort of a little bit off topic. This is just me pontificating. Is that TikTok? If TikTok did like an age verification system like YouTube did, it would be so much better. Like with YouTube, every user on YouTube knows if they're under 13. Well, they have to be over 13. Actually, well, they have YouTube Kids as
Right.
well. And I actually think that Gen X, or no, not Gen X. I mean, sorry, Gen Z, my daughter's generation, 14-year-olds, they hate TikTok and they hate Facebook. They live on YouTube. And I really feel like it was because of YouTube Kids that YouTube put that app out. And you're like, oh, I can put the YouTube Kids app on my kids, iPad because I know it's safe. Because YouTube is like super strict and careful about content and who can see it and stuff like that, because they make every, like when you upload a video on YouTube, you have to answer like 7 questions about stuff that's in your video. And then they
Yeah,
go
I
and
have a
check it.
YouTube channel as well. It's a whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. I feel like if TikTok did that, then they could make it so that the wrong people don't see the wrong content. And they could sort of like, rather than do all this arbitrary stuff like you're describing, they could just sort of do it at a base level. So that's my rant. And I wish they would do that. I wish
Yeah,
everybody would do it with Facebook, or like YouTube does it, because then we solve that children problem separately from the other problems. But
yeah.
anyway, um, so actually, Amanda Short has this interesting this statement. I know this used to be kind of true. I'm curious if it still is. She said TikTok will push your first few videos to the For You page as a test to gauge and see who likes your content, who does it fit, etc. Then your other videos are pushed based on the initial engagement. Now there's a see more I have to click.
So
Yeah, is that still the?
I've heard that theory a lot. Um, they're not pushing your initial content to the For You page to gauge interest in the content. That's a very common misconception. They are pushing it to the For You page to get you addicted to TikTok
That's
and
what I thought.
to
That's
get
how
you
I thought
to
it was
make
too.
content.
And I heard
Yes.
that when I
So
first started.
they only
I was just going to say, back in 2022, when I first started getting into TikTok, that's actually what people were saying. They're like, they're going to push your first few videos out there really wide and get you lots of views,
yeah.
and then they hook you, and then you fall into the grind of making more videos.
Yes. And then what I see a lot is people are like, well, for a while, my videos were doing really well. And then whenever I look at what a while was, it's videos 1, 2, and maybe video 3. And it's because TikTok is trying to be like, hey, look, you can get a ton of views on here. And usually it's
Yeah,
like 900 views,
yeah,
which honestly for TikTok is
no
small, small bananas. I don't know what the terms are.
potato, no
Um,
potato.
Small potatoes. That's what it is.
Yeah,
I have a
fine,
2-year-old. I don't have a brain anymore.
fair enough.
You have a kid. You understand.
Oh yeah,
So, so it'll show people and be like, hey, look, you can get views, keep posting and keep interacting and learn to do it right and like spend all your time here. But so then I see those complaints and then I have to break it to people. I'm like, hey, I love you. And I know you're trying really hard, but the initial videos you were posting weren't inherently better than the new stuff. It's just that they were decent enough to not immediately have like the shadow banning issues or suppressed views. And so they were pushing it to try to keep you on the app. But if you change your strategy and have a more consistent and more TikTok friendly strategy, then you're actually going to see a lot more views than those 200 or even sub 100 views.
yeah,
Um, because yeah, TikTok will initially post those videos. They'll initially push your first couple to keep you on the app and keep you using the app, but it's not because your initial content is better or because it approves of the content more. or because it's trying to gauge interest in your account overall. It's actually just to get you to stick around. And that's why that's why I push so hard for like, you've got to get the really good hooks, because they actually gauge how they're pushing out your video based off of the first 250 to 300 views on a piece of content. That's what they're judging before they start pushing it out. That's what their algorithm is judging before they push it out. It's not based off of your first couple videos. It's based off of the first 200 to 300 views on every video. And if a video doesn't get within, like, say, an hour, 200 or 300 views, then there's something wrong with that piece of content that TikTok's bot is picking up, and they are suppressing views.
Yeah. Or your account's been shadow banned.
Yes. I find that when they shadow ban accounts, it's generally, if you get community guidelines violations, they tend to be more willing to shadow ban. But also, if you take a break for a week or two and then fix your algorithm and then post again, if it's content that is not your controversial, getting you shadow banned content, Mal. I don't know what content you post, but you were just saying that they keep dinging you. But basically, if you post safer content, then they're more likely to push it again. Or content that's more in line with what you were initially posting that gave you a lot of followers. Because the thing that kind of sucks about TikTok is they're literally like, yeah, just post the same thing over and over again, because that's what people want to see, and that's what's getting people to stay on our damn app.
That makes sense. Yeah. I think a lot of people here they know where to post. I post. I think I wear all latex and wear a gas mask and do post-apocalyptic gardening and stuff like that.
Right.
And
yes, I was told about that yesterday.
Yeah, a lot of the apps actually really don't like it when people are wearing masks. They're that will actually get you in trouble a lot with a lot of the different, like Instagram feels the same way and stuff like that. But yeah, I've got videos right now on TikTok that can't get over 5,000 views. I have other videos that have like 10 million views. So it's kind of like, I can really look at it.
Actually, if you're getting 5,000, then TikTok doesn't hate you as much as you might think.
I guess
used to be that would mean something. Yeah. Okay. So the whole thing with like that is also just like back in 2022 and stuff, like we did not have the saturation that we have now. We didn't have TikTok farms pushing out thousands or even millions of pieces of content per day that we have now. And so they're also trying to be a lot more strict about the type of content they keep pushing, which is why I also talk about longer content, increasing people's view time, keeping them interested, because that's when they're going to start pushing it out more.
That's really good advice. Okay, I like that. But then that makes sense too with the longer content, because then you're that's a nugget right there that I'm like really happy I brought you on for. Like, I can use this. So
I will chat with anyone about TikTok all day.
That's awesome though, and you really know your stuff too, which I love. And it seems like you have a really analytical mind, which, being autistic and ADHD, I'm guessing you specialize in hyper-focus together and learn everything you can.
Yeah, hyper-focus and pattern recognition is really wonderful for social media and ad analytics.
Yep, that's my superpower as well. I feel like that sort of thing. So you do TikTok Shop as well. You do TikTok Shop, and you've been doing well with that, I believe.
Can you tell me about that? I haven't turned my TikTok Shop back on since I got back from Readers Take Denver. I don't know if anybody saw my video about it, but it was a total shit show, and I was a little traumatized, but it's fine. But I haven't turned off my TikTok Shop back on yet because I haven't restocked my books, because I brought all my TikTok Shop books to Denver, and I sold out of all of the books I brought to Denver.
Wow!
Which was the one good thing about that. Yes. It's because I was in my little table, or I was in front of my little table, and I was just yelling, "Talk to me about demon wieners," to everyone that walked by, every single person. Nobody was immune from demon wieners.
That sounds like actual demon wieners. I was gonna say, it sounds exactly how demon wieners probably are. Actually, no one's immune from them, so it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, they're weird looking and do the thing. They do the job, according to my book character. But yes, so TikTok Shop. I actually, I personally have not been putting as much effort into my TikTok Shop, but I have found that just by virtue of having a TikTok Shop, I have content that goes viral that has no reason to. Like, I have books that sell out as soon as I stock them when I haven't posted a video about them. Um,
Wow.
and the thing that I find that sells really, really well on TikTok Shop is going to be always signed copies. So you have to keep them in stock at your house and mail them out. And I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure it's only available in like the US and maybe one other country right now. So unfortunately, if you're not in the US, it can be a huge struggle. Or if you don't have a PA in the US that can keep your signed books in stock. But yeah, signed books and special editions do really, really well because people go on TikTok Shop to connect more directly with authors.
Mhm.
That's why they're buying off of TikTok Shop so that they can get that direct connection to an author. They can get the signed books and they can get the sprayed edges or the hardcovers or whatever it is that you're offering there.
Right. Yeah, we actually last week had a woman on. Her name's Dana. She's from a company called Inkfluence, and her whole thing is
Mhm.
getting people better prices and more interesting special editions because she has direct connections with printers in China, and she's doing between 20 and 40,000 books a month right now from these printers. So she has access to a lot of cool printers. And one of the things they do is they will actually print the first pages, send them to you, you sign them, and then you send them back, and then they bind them into the book, and then you could send them to a
Was it Dana
distribution
Claire?
center. Yes, Dana Claire. Yeah,
I met her in Denver, actually. We talked about doing
yeah,
special editions for one of my books.
yeah. He was really good, and she also was traumatized by Denver, by the way. So
Yeah,
it
it
was.
was a shit show.
She said whatever you heard, it was worse.
It's
It was
true.
her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I even said that in my video about it. I was like, anything you hear, if you hear other people talking about their experience, it was probably true. It was all so bad. Like anything
yeah,
I said was just my personal experience.
yeah.
There were people being stalked and harassed. Um, it was, yeah,
I can't even imagine that.
yeah.
Sorry.
And I've had a lot of people come to me after posting the video because it like got a lot of attention. Um, and they were like, here's my experience. Do with that what you will. Holy shit. Anyway, but about TikTok.
Yeah. Um, so have you worked with other authors on their TikTok shops as well, or do you mostly just focus on the course and the content?
So I haven't worked one on one with authors in their TikTok shops, but I have a lot of authors who have taken my course or who have done my little workshops. I occasionally do these workshops where I have like 4 to 8 people,
Mhm.
and we'll do like more deep one on one work. And I'll have people who do that and then do TikTok shop. And the big thing is still always going to be like finding that piece of connection, whether it is a comp title that's going to get people interested in your stuff or doing those hooks that really drive forward that need to continue reading. But I do find that excuse me, whenever you're doing like the TikTok shop content, it's usually packing books or showing off your sprayed edges and signed copies and all of that kind of stuff. And tend to find that going with leaning more toward your tropes and your comp titles and stuff like that is going to do a lot better for those,
Okay.
versus doing those scenes, funny enough. But you still want to do things that give people that excitement. So you want to lean into stuff that people are thirsty for. You want to say, if you're looking for more books like Fourth Wing, check out this dragon romance book. In this one, she fucks the dragons. Um, so that's just mine and some other people's. It's fine. Um,
Cool.
but yeah, and so you're gonna give that comp title or that comparison or that trope and be like, here's my take on the trope that makes it a little bit better. So like, here's this enemies to lovers book that's based off of the Hunchback of Notre Dame, but it's Esmeralda and Frollo the priest, and it's sapphic, like that kind of thing, where it's like, here are these things you love, and here's these other aspects that you maybe didn't even know you wanted, and
Right.
here's what
This
makes them
twist.
better. Yeah. And so like for one of my books, I'll be like, okay, so it's Phantom of the Opera, but it's a metal tour and there's demons. So it's Phantom of the Opera, but it's Warped Tour and there's demons and stuff like
That's
that.
cool.
So, leaning more into those comps of like, here's what people want more of, and here's these things that they love that they're already looking for. And here's why yours is either better or different. Usually just different in a way that helps fulfill their need for more of that type of content.
Yeah, if you say better, you invite this comparison that people will come and attack you
Yes,
for.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. One of the things
So
I suggest too for like when people do comparisons in their blurbs is I say like don't say also I don't say like don't say if you like author A and author B you're gonna like this. I say like if you can call it a trope. So if you say like if you like this one I use a lot if you like the small close knit crew of Firefly and the gritty
yes,
realism of Battlestar Galactica, then you're going to love this. Like if you can call out a specific trope that you're going to like from that series, that can work even better.
I'm gonna write this down for me. I'm always taking marketing tips from people.
I love it.
Take
I know it's a good
trope
one.
from comp title or better things.
Because I always find like if you don't call that out, like if I say if you like Firefly, someone might be like, well, I like Firefly because Captain Mal looks good, or something like that. It might not be because of the thing that you were comparing for. So it's always good to call out that comparison. Also, then because it's going to create the feeling,
I like
right? You say the
Firefly
small.
because there's horses and spaceships. So
I mean, yeah, that's yeah. That's another thing too. If you like the idea of starships hauling cattle, like Firefly, then you're going to love
yes,
Firefly too. I think that's also pretty cool.
I'm just a shameless horse girly. So anytime there's like space opera type stuff and also horses, like actual horses, not like planet's proxy for horses, then I get excited.
Good to know. I'll have to think about that. Can I have horses in an upcoming book? I actually do have a series planned where a bunch of kids grow up on a ranch on a random planet. So maybe I'll get
Well,
that one.
I don't know if you are a horse girly, but if you have horse questions, message me because I live on a ranch.
I used to ride a lot when I was a lot younger, but it's been a stretch.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
yeah,
I'm an adult taking riding lessons again after having ridden for 20 years of my life. So
wow, that's cool. There's always that joke that you just like solve for. It's like, oh shoot, now I forget how it goes in the heat of the moment. I was like, how do you know if a girl's a horse girl? And the answer is, don't worry, she'll tell you.
it's true though. I collect model horses. So if I were in my actual office, you would just see this line of tiny model horses above my head. Yeah.
True, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
I'll work horses into any conversation the way my husband will work Magic the Gathering into any conversation.
Those both sound awesome. I love Magic the Gathering as well. So as far as people getting in touch with you, I've put the link to your course in the comment or in the description for this video, wherever you are, except it might not be on my personal profile there, but I'll edit it afterwards, make sure it's there. So people can find you there and take your course and kind of get everything from the sounds of it, from all the way from how to install the app all the way through to just about everything from the sounds of it, how to write hooks, which I think is invaluable information in and of itself. That's stuff that will serve you anywhere you do advertising. It'll help you with your tagline for your blurb, because it's the same thing. Like if your tagline doesn't make them want to read the rest of your blurb, then it failed. It has to do that.
And I do want to clarify the TikTok course itself, because if you go on my website, you're going to see that I have a course that's just about doing those marketing pulls and writing hooks.
Okay.
But the TikTok course itself does go over writing hooks. It's just not as comprehensive as that one. So if you see that and you're like, oh, she said we'd learn about hooks in the TikTok course, I promise you will. There's just a separate course that's more formulaic and more comprehensive about writing hooks, but like you don't have to take that to do really, really great.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. Is there anything else you want to share with folks about TikTok or using TikTok?
TikTok is my enemy. so I have to defeat it. I cannot let it win. The big thing I want to drill into people is to get those really solid hooks written. Like I said, you don't need a ton. You don't need 50 from a book. I have 14 from all of my books. I originally wrote 8 for each book so I could test them out. So get those solid hooks and just post consistently, because you're going to get a lot more information on what's working when you post once a day for 30 days. Doesn't have to be face content, doesn't have to be high effort content. You're going to get a lot more information if you post every day for 30 days than if, once a week you're like, okay, I've been freaking out all week, but I'm finally going to post this piece of content. It better do well, and then get really bummed when it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's like that experiment that the one professor did where he told half the class to make the best single vase they could, and the other half of the class, they had to make as many vases as they could, and the half of the class that made as many as they could actually ended up producing the best quality vases. It's like that. You're going to get better quality by doing it more consistently, by being consistent, and you're going to have more information to evaluate, and you're going to learn a lot more by actually just doing it. Don't be scared to do it, because I don't mean this in a rude way, but nobody gives a shit as much as you do. Nobody cares as much as you think they do. People don't care enough to judge you. They really don't. And if they do, they are absolute losers.
Yeah.
Like anybody who's going to sit and judge you and look at every piece of content you produce and like sit and stew about it, like, what kind of life do they live that they're that lame?
I know, right? How much free time do they have, and how do I get that kind of free time? Actually, I know you get that kind of free time.
Yeah, I have somebody who comments on every YouTube video I post that they're like, learn to use when and whenever. And I'm like, I won't, because of you. I'm not going to.
Yep.
But they comment on every video, and I'm like,
I'd be like, I want your watch time, so I'm never doing it. You're hate watching me, and I want that. I want those watch hours.
Comment on the video, and you're gonna tell people, oh my god, this person annoys me.
Yeah, you're driving up my social proof here by doing that. Keep it up, person.
Exactly.
That's fantastic. Awesome. I love that take.
So my advice is just fucking post. Just do it. Like, you've gotta, until you start posting consistently, you're still going to be afraid of what people are going to think. But until you start posting consistently and realizing that people don't care that much, and the people who do care and who are dicks about it, like, they're not doing anything to your career. They don't matter. It's looking for the people who do care. You're going to find somebody who you're their favorite author now because they found you in one TikTok video. I have gotten that review on a thing that was like, oh my God, this is my new favorite author because I found her on TikTok. Thank you so much, TikTok. I'm like,
that's so cool.
I did that.
That's awesome.
So just be consistent. Put up the fucking posts. Don't care what other people think. Because if people think enough to be shitty to you, then that's their problem.
I think that's really good advice, because I think a lot of people worry about that. And no matter what you do, no matter how much you work at it, you're going to get those comments. Like, there's no way to exist without having those comments on social media. So just sort of like,
yeah. And if somebody wants to be miserable all the time about everything, that's their problem. There's something wrong with them if they want everybody else to be miserable.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Kate. I'll let you get back to your child who's desperate for you from the sounds of it. Or just
my husband is playing with him to keep him away from me.
Yeah.
Because he wants to be on me, and I don't post my child on social media. I don't let him in my videos or anything. So my husband is like, stay off camera.
No, that totally makes sense. I absolutely get that. I appreciate that. So, but thank you for coming on and sharing this information. And I hope anyone who's interested in this goes on, checks out your course, because it sounds like you really know, just even the way you've talked about the way that TikTok works. I can tell you really know how it works behind, like, underneath, how it's promoting things, how it's behaving. And you can tell trends from just one-off flash in the pan types of stuff, which is really important.
Yes, for sure. And I do want to point out, until the end of the month, all of my courses that are out right now are 20% off. Anything on my website is 20% off because we're trying to replace our well and it's expensive and I need to sell some courses to replace my well. So if you order it, you have lifetime access to it and it is 20% off. And then my non-TikTok one that's about like making a better streamlined process for like all social media sites, not just TikTok. That one is 50% off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I have a coupon code for that. And I will message that to Jill for you as well.
Yeah, we'll put that in our
but that one,
comment.
Yes, and that's just for that other course that's not out yet. But yeah, so if you wanted to take courses right now, it's the time to do it because they're discounted and you do get lifetime access. So you don't have to start it today. You don't have to finish taking the course before the end of the month or whatever. You're going to have access to it until the sun, consumes the earth. Or whatever.
Or the horses take over, whichever one comes first.
Whichever. Whenever that governor's ass destroys the internet because somebody posted a Facebook ad about the politician's butt.
Right. It took me a moment to catch up, get where you were with that. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Kate. It has been fabulous talking with you, and I look forward to seeing you around.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I had a wonderful time.
Awesome. Right. Bye-bye.
Bye.